So, have you ever looked around a modern workplace and noticed something a little strange? You see women everywhere. They're more visible than ever, but for some reason, real authority seems to stay just out of reach. Well, today, we're going to dig into that. Based on a really fascinating piece from Dawn, we're going to explore the subtle, polite face of misogyny that builds these invisible walls. All right, let's kick things off with some numbers because they tell a really stark story. The global average for women in senior and middle management is around 30%, but in Pakistan, it's less than 8%. And look at that next to other Muslim majority countries like Turkey and Brunei. I mean, that's not just a small gap, right? That points to something much deeper, something systemic going on. And this brings us to the real puzzle here. Women are in the offices. They're at the meetings. Their faces are in the company photos. They are physically there. So, why isn't that presence turning into actual power? What's the disconnect between being seen and being in charge? Well, to really get to the bottom of this, we need to look at a version of bias that's a lot more modern, a lot more subtle. It's not always that loud, obvious discrimination people might think of. Today, in a lot of professional spaces, misogyny has gotten sneaky. It often wears a very polite, even friendly face. Okay, so what does that actually look like? Let's break it down. On one hand, you have loud misogyny. It's easy to spot, right? It's the unapologetic, women can't do this kind of talk. But polite misogyny, that's way more insidious. It's the kind that smiles, that praises women in public, all while making sure that the real power, the big strategic decisions, stay firmly in male hands. And this quote from the source just nails it. It perfectly captures that dynamic. It's the performance of inclusion, but without any of the substance. A woman gets a round of applause, she's called a symbol of progress, she even gets a seat at the table, but she's quietly guided to the very edge, far away from where the real game is being played. So you might be asking, how does this polite attitude actually turn into a whole system that holds people back? Well, it happens through a set of invisible rules. These aren't written down in any company handbook, but they control the day-to-day reality of the office, and they shape careers in huge ways. Okay, rule number one is something the source calls invisible office housework. And this is a big one. Think about all those little supportive tasks. Taking notes, organizing the team lunch, circulating emails. They're essential, for sure. The office wouldn't run without them. But let's be honest, they're not the tasks that get you promoted. They're career dead ends. And here's the kicker. These kinds of tasks are often framed as just helping out. But they get handed to female colleagues again and again and again. Every single time a woman is asked to take the meeting notes instead of lead the debate, she's being subtly put in the helper box, not the leader box. All right, let's talk about another one of these invisible rules. This one's about whose ideas actually get heard. Picture this. A woman in a meeting throws out a really sharp, insightful idea. And what happens? Crickets. Nothing. Maybe a polite nod, and then the conversation just moves on as if she never spoke. But then, watch this. A few minutes go by, and a male colleague says the exact same thing. And suddenly, it's brilliant. It's a game changer. The idea only became real, only became valuable after it came out of a man's mouth. This is so common, people have actually given it a name, the heap heat. So when you put all of this together, day after day, the office housework, the ignored ideas, you get this. A clear, unwritten division of labor. Men get funneled toward the big picture stuff. Strategy, growth, vision. Women get steered toward support, coordination, administration. You basically get two different career tracks running in parallel, right in the same office. And get this bias is so deep it even changes the stories we tell about success. When a man succeeds, it's seen as proof of his natural talent, his leadership. Of course he did well, he's a star. But when a woman succeeds, well, that often gets explained away. Oh, she must have had help, or she's just a good networker. The bias is baked right into the narrative of who gets to be brilliant. So what's the big picture cost of all this? The end result of all these polite little rules and invisible barriers? Well, it's not just unfair to individuals. The cost of this exclusion is massive for companies and for the entire economy. What you end up with is exactly that paradox we talked about at the beginning. You get a workplace that looks diverse, with women in plenty of roles, but it becomes more and more male the closer you get to where real power lives. The boardroom, the C-suite, the strategy offsites. And look, this isn't just about feelings or fairness. This is about cold, hard economics. The International Growth Center crunched the numbers on what this kind of exclusion costs, and wow. This 30% represents a staggering amount of untapped potential for the whole country. Let me just say that again because it's huge. A potential 30% boost to the entire country's GDP if these gender gaps were closed. This proves this isn't some niche women's issue. We're talking about something that affects the economic health of the entire nation. Sidelining the talent of half your population comes at a breathtakingly high price. Okay, so we see the problem. We see the incredible cost. What do we do about it? Well, the source is really clear on this. Just knowing about the problem isn't enough. To fix this, you have to actually take apart the system that lets it happen in the first place. And here's maybe the most important takeaway from the whole piece. Celebrating women one day a year or sending people to workshops, it doesn't work if the underlying structures stay exactly the same. It's like trying to fix a leaky pipe with a Band-Aid. The polite gestures are meaningless. You have to fix the pipe itself. The good news is the source doesn't just point out the problem, it offers some real practical solutions. First off, make that office housework rotational. Note-taking, organizing, everyone takes a turn. Simple. Then, when you recognize women's achievements, talk about their strategic input, their leadership, not just their great soft skills. And this one's huge. Do an audit. Who is actually in the room when the big strategy is being decided? And finally, make sure inclusion is part of the process before a decision is made, not just a box to check afterwards. And that brings us to this final thought from the source, which just wraps everything up so perfectly. It's a powerful challenge, because without real, fundamental changes to the systems that hold women back, all the flowers and celebrations are just gestures. The real goal is to create a workplace where talent, all talent, can finally grow, not just in the office, but all the way up to the boardroom.